The following is a transcript from a short radio program that has been picked up by various listeners across the continental United States. Many have been perplexed by its sudden appearance and how it seems to preempt whatever song or radio program they are listening to at the time. Others have heard it pop up as soon as they drive out of range of certain radio tower broadcasts, appearing suddenly when their program starts to cut out. Common threads between occurrences are that listeners are usually alone, listeners are driving in their vehicles, and that it more frequently occurs on the AM band. Out of everyone that was interviewed, all had followed the instructions that were broadcast on the short program. There was no way of knowing of those that didn't, although news stories across the country report at least 3 episodes of those that could meet the criteria. As for me, I was coming out of North Platte, Nebraska when I heard it. I was driving across barren plains and trying to make Denver before midnight. I was meeting my friends in Aurora and wanted to get a good night's rest before we set off for the slopes the next day. At first, I thought it was some kind of joke, an audio sketch show recorded by some locals and inserted into the broadcast accidentally or as a goof. I was listening to a rerun of Car Talk on NPR. I had been on the road for 10 hours straight at that point, and the Car Talk guy's thick accents and wheezing laughters were keeping me awake. The signal was clear when, suddenly, there was a wash of static and laughter, a different kind of laughter than the Bostonian cackles of the Magliozzi brothers. It was a higher and more feminine, but androgynous at the same time. It almost sounded like it came from within the car itself. Then the static washed away and some light, twinkling music came on, and a voice started talking. It was the voice of a cheery old man with a twangy accent. This is the transcript as I heard it on that spooky and unsettling night. Howdy, folks. I'm Buck Hensley, and these are the rules of the road. Tonight, we come to you with an answer to an age-old question that has perplexed many of y'all out there over the years. Why is it that when you're driving on some highway or busy interstate, you sometimes look out at the side of the road and see a single, solitary shoe sitting out there all by its lonesome? How did it get there? Where's its owner? Why is it only one shoe? We'll try to answer that, but once you learn this important rule, you may never be able to look at the single shoe on the side of the road the same way again. In fact, it would be downright deadly not to. So, here is tonight's rule. If at any point during your journey you see a single shoe on the side of the road all by itself, then you must pull over immediately. What's that? You say you're in the far lane and spot the shoe and there's a lot of traffic and you can't cross over? Duff diddy. You must find a way to that shoe or else, even if you have to turn around. Once you are pulled over, you make sure it is safe for you to exit your vehicle. How tragic and hilarious would it be for you to start out with the good intention of following this vital and important rule, only to be splattered on the interstate by the front tires and bumper of an inattentive driver? How your teeth would scatter on the concrete and glint under the moonlight. So, you've arrived at the shoe and the scene is safe and secure? Well, okay then, this next part is relatively easy. All you need to do is get out and remove one of your socks and place it in the shoe, get back in your car, and leave. If you don't have a sock with you, well then you better find one. Now, I've made that sound extremely easy, and most times it really is that easy, but sometimes the shoe's owner is nearby and it might give you a good old fright. I can't say that I rightly know this fella's name, but he only has one leg. I don't mean he's some sort of amputee or anything like that. I mean he is a man of sturdy build, and that he has a normal torso, and arms, and hips, but his pelvis tapers off into just that one leg at the dead center of his body, a thigh as thick as a propane tank. He generally gets around by hopping on the one leg, and he has a 10 or 15 foot standing broad jump. Sometimes, when the leg is tied, he pulls himself along with his arms, dragging his leg behind him like a mermaid. He looks downright dirty and mean, clothes all ragged and worn. You can usually see him at the tree line or in the brush or down in the ditch, waiting for you. He might approach you, it depends on what mood he's in. Just give him a nod, tuck your sock in his shoe, and leave. He hasn't hurt anyone yet that I know of, at least not yet anyhow. Now, I hope my folksy demeanor doesn't undermine the gravity of this rule. What happens if you ignore this rule? Well, something bad will happen, that's what. This is not a joke, and ignore this at your own peril. But if you do not follow this rule, the next bridge you drive over will collapse either due to a construction failure or some other arbitrary reason, sending you and your vehicle into the water below. This will always result in your untimely demise, no matter how good a swimmer you are. Hope you all are having a good one out there. Stay alert, stay lively, stay lonely. Once again, I'm Buck Hensley, and these are the rules of the road. I had to shut off the stereo. I drove in silence for some time, trying to laugh nervously at the message I had just heard. It had to be a sketch, right? Some sort of surreal dark comedy or something. Yet, I found myself slowing down to 60 miles an hour, driving in the right-hand lane and scanning the shoulder for missing shoes. My heart was pounding and my palms were sweaty on the steering wheel. What if I missed one? Were there any bridges between here and Aurora? Any major rivers? I told myself to quit being ridiculous, but it was no use. I drove 60 miles an hour the whole way to Aurora and added an hour to my total drive time. My eyes were wide and watering, and I could feel the blood vessels form onto the whites, begging for me to shut my lids. It wasn't until I pulled off of the exit of I-225 and was coming down the exit ramp that I started to calm down. The fatigue and sleepiness hit me like a freight train, and as I made the turn onto 6th, out of the corner of my eye, I saw it. A single shoe, sitting on the side of the road, sole facing up and laces splayed out. I slammed on my brakes. You're insane, I told myself. It was cold out there. I didn't even bother putting on my coat. The traffic was dead, a bad part of town. A black garbage bag and some trash clung on the overgrown patch of prairie grass and weeds. A car came in the other direction. There was a convenience store off in the distance. I approached the shoe and flipped it over. A basic black canvas low top, a Converse ripoff. I looked around to see if anyone was watching. There was a guy in a heavy brown coat and a low-slung baseball cap sitting against the wall of the convenience store. I couldn't tell how many legs he had. Another car came down the ramp towards me, headlights shining. I probably was going to look crazy, but I pulled my right shoe off, peeled my sock off, and tucked it into the shoe. From the garbage bag, I heard a rustle and rattling aluminum cans. A hand shot out from underneath, buried its fingers into the dirt, and pulled the body it was attached to forward. From underneath the garbage bag, a face suddenly appeared and looked at me, yellowed eyes and a mouth full of awful teeth. I screamed and darted back to my car and never looked back. There were 3 bridge incidents that year throughout the U.S. 17 deaths. One was an overpass at rush hour. Another, a riverboat barge crashed into the pylon sporting a 100-foot interstate bridge, and several cars and a semi plunged into the river below. You had to wonder. I carry a pack of socks with me when I'm out on the road and constantly look for shoes. I always follow the rules to a T and take off the sock that I'm wearing, just in case. I haven't seen him again at any of the shoes I've stopped at. Everyone thinks I'm crazy, but nothing bad has happened to me yet.